like, huh? Don't look like that.
Mayor,
Yes.
so I'm letting people in one at a time.
Don't let the
Okay.
naked guy in.
Yeah, I'm gonna try.
I didn't
But,
see that, so that's good. He wasn't on my screen, so that was
Michelle,
good. But I saw Michelle's face, and I knew we'd been Zoom bombed. I could tell.
Michelle, if you have issues, you can transfer host to me, log off and log back on, and I'll transfer it back to you because I have 5G. So
Okay. I'm just trying to make sure I don't let anybody in that shouldn't be.
I don't know, but that was kind of sad that I was actually talking about being Zoom bombed, literally going to say that, and you were like, "We have to go." It happened right as I said it.
oddly enough, I've had worse happen in my courtroom on Zoom.
Wow.
All right,
Something
guys,
tells me,
it's gonna take
something
a minute
tells me
here.
that Laura has too.
My speech usually says that we'll notify law enforcement, so be duly notified, doing the.
Yeah,
doing the
they're all-
door right in the corner.
They're all here to take care of it.
Duly notified.
Hey,
I was
duly
trying to see if I
notified,
had him
huh?
on probation.
So there's quite a few people left in the waiting room that I'm not sure if they were here for the meeting or.
You want to
if they
say
were here-
names? You want to
Um,
say names and I can say?
You can let him, or was this open to the public?
Yeah.
Yes.
Let him in and
We'll
remove
see
him.
where
if
it
it's-
goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I'm gonna let people in one at a time real slow if you guys want to kind of just stall for a few minutes. And then that way
Okay.
if I see a problem, I can try to remove them one at a time.
Okay.
He was under Richard, if that helps.
Yeah, don't let Richard back in.
The real Zoom bombers pick one of your names and put.
They do. That's why it's tricky.
Oh,
Okay.
really? Oh, I didn't know that.
So if you
Oh,
see
yeah.
two of someone, let me know.
We're learning something as we go, huh?
It will probably pop up again. One will probably get in here. So if that happens, just bear with me and I'll try to just remove them.
Does this really happen a lot with the public meetings?
This is only the second time for me. The danger comes when you put the link out a couple days ahead of time and it's public.
Mm-hmm. Well, now we need to do it one day ahead. Okay, Mary, you can explain a little bit more about
Okay.
the bombing.
So if we get Zoom bombed like we just did, Michelle will immediately cut the meeting off, and you will just come back to the same link, and we will come back in. Okay, so let's just keep our fingers crossed it does not happen again. So I just ask everyone as we head into this, and I introduce the Honorable Joseph Costello Jr. He's a retired 38th Circuit Court judge, and he is an assistant professor of criminal justice at Siena Heights University. He will be our moderator for the evening, and he will be introducing the panelists and running the meeting from here until we move on to public comment. So I will be turning it over to him, but we ask that unless you are a panelist answering or you are Joe Costello, that you please do not, to please have your your audio on mute, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Chairperson Bernard. Good evening, everybody. In case you're wondering where the 38th Circuit Court was, that was over in Monroe, but I'm now a full-time resident of Lenawee County in my retirement, so I'm happy to be here. So let's introduce our panelists tonight. You may be hearing from one or more of them in response to some of these questions. And so I'll just call upon them and give them an opportunity for a brief introduction. Let's start with Circuit Court Judge Anna Marie Anzalone.
Hi, I'm Anna Marie Anzalone, and I am the Chief Judge of the Lenawee County Circuit and Probate Court. I have with me tonight Shannon Elliott, who is my court administrator for the Probate and Juvenile Court. And I have lived in Lenawee County for about over 20 years now, and it's a great community to live in.
Thank you, Judge. And now Prosecutor Burt Castleberry.
Hi, my name is Burt Castleberry, for those of you that don't know me. And I am actually looking at you, but you're on a screen that's different from my camera, and it's easier for me to see, so I'm not ignoring everybody. I've been the prosecutor here since 2012. I moved to Lenawee County 22 years ago after I got done serving 6 years in the United States Navy. I met my wife in the Navy, who is a lifelong Lenawee County resident. And we have 3 sons, age 20, 17, and 15. That's all going to change in about 2 weeks, as 2 of them will get older. And our oldest son is currently serving in the United States Marine Corps.
Thank you. Sheriff Troy Bevere.
Thank you, Judge. For those who don't know me, my name is Troy Bevere, and I am your Lenawee County Sheriff. And I have been the sheriff now for a little over 1.5 years, and will be your sheriff for the next 4 years. I look forward to serving all of you, and I live in Tecumseh Township. I've lived here with my wife for going on 24 years, and it's an honor to serve all of you, and look forward to the next 4 years.
And our final panelist will tell you that we saved the best for last, and that is Chief Emmerich.
Thank you, Judge. Good evening, everyone. My name is Vince Emmerich. I'm the Chief of Police for the City of Adrian. I'm from the county. I grew up in Riga. I am a Siena grad. I started with APD in 2001. I have held every rank on the way, and I've been the chief for the last 8 years. So it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
And we want to thank everyone that's tuning in today. We reached out to the Lenawee County branch, the NAACP. We have some of those fine members with us tonight, as well as I think I saw a couple of my students online here as well. So we're glad to have them here. So as the mayor pointed out, there were some duplicate questions, so we tried to combine them the best we could, understanding that this is a rather short format to answer a lot of tough questions. And keep in mind, if you would please, that as you change facts of a particular case, it could really change the answer. So if you hear some general descriptions in response to these questions, I believe that's why you're going to hear more of a general response than something very specific. So our first question is, what is the biggest obstacle facing law enforcement in Lenawee County when it comes to bridging the divide?
Do you want anybody in any particular order?
No, I think we'll let people chime in as they see fit.
Well, I can tell you as I see it, it's not an easy question to answer, for one thing, because I don't know that there's one single answer. But I think community resilience is very important. And what does that mean? It means we're not a me first community. It means that we're looking out for all of our citizens. And how do we make sure that everyone belongs? And the way that we build that is we have to take care of mental health. We have to look for mentors for our children. We have to say, where is our recreation departments? Where are the things for children to be able to do? How do we help homeless people? Why are they homeless? We spend way too much money in this country on incarceration, and we don't spend enough money on our children and our community. I believe we have to support one another, and that is what will make our community strong.
I think the prosecutor touched on quite a few things that my general topic is going to hit on too, and that's really strengthening the relationships between the police and the community. I think that's what really needs to happen to get that divide closer. Things like building trust. I know we throw that word around quite a bit, but it really is important. Communication. things like this, the forum that we had over the summer, having the ability to talk to the residents and to be approachable, for them to be able to stop in and have a conversation. Transparency. I think that I think that that's huge, to be able to not have any an agenda that doesn't actually fall in line with everything else. And as I go through and look at some of the other things that that we need to work on, and that's being involved with our community. So having the police, having the police department, having the sheriff's office be part of that community and well ingrained in that community, having them at events and seeing them, that's really important. I had the honor of being a pallbearer for a gentleman today who's 97 years old, and he was a member of the sheriff's office, and he was part of the community. He handed out candy to the kids, and being able to celebrate his life and be part of that was huge. And it's things like that that just make you part of the community and make you approachable. That's really important.
I think my answer is going to sound a lot like the first two. I use the term in terms of obstacles, a barrier to communication. And there's no barrier quite like a pandemic. Tonight is the best example. You know, I think when we planned this, we were originally going to be in the library basement, and we were going to have a group of officers, and we were all going to be face to face with the community and have a meaningful exchange. And those barriers exist, and we've got to figure out a way to get around them so we can have meaningful communication. Other barriers are more personal. You know, you have an officer who makes a traffic stop, you have an officer who approaches someone on the street. There's expectations, there's apprehensions on either side of that exchange. You know, those are the walls that have to come down before two people can have a conversation that means anything.
At this point, I would say that Shannon Elliott is my court administrator, and she would probably have more experience in this area than I. So I would defer to Shannon to talk about what she as a juvenile court is doing to bridge that divide with the juveniles in our community.
Thank you, Judge. I think it's very much what Prosecutor Casbury said. It's resilience, but it's also being proactive as a community, reducing silos and building synergy and systems amongst our communities. It's really investing in families and kids, going back to the original part of what our community is made and what it thrives upon, which again is those families, those youth, that population that needs to be taken care of. What's happening within our systems, within our communities and our young people, and developing that further. Strengthening resilience, strengthening what they can endure protects our community much longer than our reaction to what's happening around us. So if we put the effort into the early stages of our children and our families, then we build an immense amount of resilience that really stabilizes families, youth, and community members to endure things that happen, like pandemics, like criminal issues that should arise in our communities. If we put the effort in when they're young, when they're really support families, we're able to endure traumatic events and move through and carry on as strong community members within our communities. So I think it's really building those systems amongst all of Lenawee County, and then creating a place where it's not you go here or go there, or this person will help you if this happens. It's really creating that no wrong door theory, right? You can go anywhere in Lenawee County and somebody will support you, help you, or at least lead you to the right place to support your needs and help you move forward so that you maybe never have to encounter law enforcement in any way, shape, or form other than the government systems that we have to as community members within Lenawee County.
Thank you. We'll now get into some questions. I'll be more focused on law enforcement directly. So our next question is, what training has your staff received regarding implicit bias and diversity as well as de-escalation tactics?
I'm going to let Vince handle this one because our answers are going to be a lot alike. And the reason they're going to be a lot alike is because we do a lot of the same training. We're part of a consortium. So that's good. That's a good thing that our answers are a lot alike, because that means that all of the agencies in Lenawee County are doing the same training. So Vince, I'll defer to you on that one.
Okay, thanks, Sheriff. Yeah, we started with the fair and impartial policing, which was a class out of the state police a few years ago. At this point, we have 3 trainers, so it's an annual program for us. What we tried to add in the spring, when everything was shut down, is we found some online courses in ethics and another course, changing perceptions, a fair and impartial policing approach. Now, those I sent out to a few members of the public, asking them to review and vet some of that and get their feedback. But we're always looking to improve. So there's at least 3 courses that we go through with regard to fair and impartial policing. De-escalation is not so much a class in and of itself, in that it's something we teach as part of a number of different policies. I know that we get into the, is it number 9 with the force continuum and de-escalation on that. And maybe that might be a better time to address it there. But anytime we have a use of force training, be it taser, be it subject control or firearms, that is built into those policies, into that testing, into that training.
Okay, thank you.
Joe, I'd like
Oh,
to
go ahead, Burke.
address this as well. After we had our summer meeting, I looked into implicit bias training for the prosecutor's office. And I did contact a trainer, and we are working on an in-person. But in the meantime, we went to the Ohio State University's Kirwan Institute for the Study of Race and Ethnicity. And every employee of the Lenawee County Prosecutor's Office, every single employee, has completed those modules in implicit bias. As soon as the pandemic is over, we will have an in-person training as well.
Thank you. Our next question, what challenges face the Sheriff's Department as well as the City of Adrian Police Department regarding hiring and retaining a diverse workforce? And then secondly, what is the number of deputies or officers in your department who are identified as a female or member of a diverse group?
Judge, I think Judge Anzalone wanted to answer the last question.
That's fine. She can go ahead. She can overrule me.
I can now. I used to work for Judge Costello.
I know, she's my
interned
law
for him.
clerk.
Yeah. I was going to add that the Michigan Judicial Institute, as well as the State Court Administrator office, does a lot of trainings on implicit bias, and Miss Elliott and I, as well as some of the other court administrators, have done training in that, and it's offered yearly. So we have done that.
Thank you. Sheriff and the Chief, do you need me to repeat that question?
I don't need you to
Okay.
repeat it,
Okay.
Judge. One of the things that I would say to begin with on that, answering that question, I thought long and hard, and the reality is that it's just not minorities, it's hiring, period, and it's retaining people. We're in a different time, and we have difficulty finding qualified people. We have difficulty finding people that want to be the police anymore. I said about 2 or 3 years ago, I said that in the next 10 years, we're going to be in a crisis. And I think that has escalated. I think that probably in the next couple of years, we're going to be in a crisis. So it's difficult to find anybody who wants to be the police anymore. That being said, that doesn't stop us from doing what we need to do to try to find people and attract them. And it's competitive. It's competitive with law enforcement agencies, which is a good thing. It's a good thing that the sheriff's office is competing with APD to find the best and to keep them. It's also very challenging to do that because it's very slim out there, like I said. So we do quite a bit of different going to different locations and trying to recruit people. And to answer your second part of that, currently the sheriff's office, we have 53 females and 10 minorities. So it's just finding good qualified people that want to be at the sheriff's office.
Yeah, I agree with the sheriff there. Retention is the other piece of that. I mean, once you get someone hired and they start, there's no guarantee they're going to stay. For a few years there, we had become what I call a secondary academy. We would hire someone, they would work for a few years, learn how to be the police, and then they would go either to a higher paying agency or somewhere closer to home or another destination. So it's difficult to retain officers. We tried a number of things here. We tried bringing back the cadet position at the front. We tried incorporating some college students, getting them involved early, helping them build their resumes. That gave us an opportunity to see ahead of time, you know, if this person would be a good fit for sponsorship for the academies. We started again sponsoring people. That was not always possible with budgets being what they were, but last year we sponsored 2 people through the academy, and we have another one set to go in January. So that's been very positive. It's helped us recruit diverse and local candidates. So it's been a huge benefit. The second part of that, we have 31 sworn officers, which includes 4 female officers and 5 minority officers.
And if I could hit on what Vince said, you know, we really do our best to find the local talent, the people who want to stay here, the people that have been at maybe attending Adrian College or Siena Heights. That's a gold mine. But again, keeping them here is difficult. I attended last year. I went to the police academy at Washtenaw and was able to recruit a corrections officer, and he is now on the road. It's trying to find those success stories, trying to find those people that really want to make Lenawee County their home, and trying to keep them. That is challenging. I don't think there's a activity that I've been at, including this one, that I don't say, if you know somebody who wants to be the police or a dispatcher, please send them to me. I would love to have them fill out an application and be part of the sheriff's office.
Part of that too is the dynamics of working in Lenawee or the city of Adrian. For example, we had recruited 2 officers from the city of Detroit, and they joined and they worked with us for a few months, and then they decided to go back, each about a year apart, without speaking to each other. Difference being, you know, in Detroit, if you make a traffic stop and it leads to an arrest of some kind, you call in supporting units who take that over, and you're right back on the road in 15 minutes. Here in Adrian, if you get something like that, it's you start to finish. You know, you're the investigator, you're the arresting officer, you write all the reports. So some people who have experienced other places, they come here, they see our system and our process, and maybe it's more stressful, maybe it's not what they're looking for, and then they often return.
So I'm going to reword this next question just a little bit. So what qualifications are you looking for in hiring a sheriff's deputy or a city police officer?
Well, you definitely threw me a curveball with rewording that, because
I did.
you
Well,
did. And
well, it said, what is the hiring process? So I guess I did reword that.
I actually like it better, Joe, because my hiring process is about a 12-step process. And I think Mayor Heath would fall asleep at about step 5. And like I said, it's very competitive. You know, what we look for is somebody who wants to work for the sheriff's office. And we want somebody, you know, I was lucky enough to do the keynote speech at the Oakland Police Academy last year for their graduates. And in my speech, I talked about the fact that when we get somebody in front of us, and we're interviewing them, and we ask them that simple question, why do you want to be a police officer? And they give us that simple answer is, I just want to help people. We love that answer. HR people hate that answer, but we love it because really that's what we're looking for. And this 15-step hiring process that I talked about that goes through all of these different things you have to do to be qualified. It's can be a very long process, but then again, it can be a very short process. A quick anecdotal story. We had a gentleman that is from Lenawee County, and he worked for Michigan State Police, and he was not happy there. And we took that process, which is a 15-step process. We did not skip a single step. However, we hired him in a matter of 3 weeks. So when you find somebody that has the passion, that loves to do the job, that wants to come back to Lenawee County, I'll come in on a holiday, which myself and the undersheriff did, to interview this young man to get him a job here. And we'll do that for anyone who has that passion to be the police, that wants to help people and wants to do it in the community that they grew up in. Send them my way.
That's very well put, Sheriff. I would say that any qualities in a candidate that's going to help us face the challenges in Adrian. We recruit very hard for bilingual candidates, people with good interpersonal communication skills, people who are respectful, and those who are going to represent us in the best light possible and help us solve some problems.
Okay. Is it a requirement or a preference that a deputy or police officer reside in the county or city in which they serve?
I would say it's a preference. We don't require it. But with our newest officers, we're finding we're into a younger generation, young men and women in their early 20s. So they haven't really decided whether they want to rent or own a home or what they want to do. And we have found that as they join and move through the ranks, that they wind up buying houses in the city. So it works out to our benefit.
So the sheriff's office, we do not have a requirement that they live in the county. We do have a requirement that they're able to respond if we have an emergency. If there's, for example, a tornado or civil unrest, something where we need to call them back in and we need to get them here pretty quick. We kind of frown upon, it'll take me 2 hours to get there because I live, in the thumb or something like that. So we do ask that they live close enough that they can respond. We prefer that, again, I talked about it a second ago, that they do live in Lenawee County or have ties to Lenawee County. So if they don't live in Lenawee County, but they live in an adjoining county, but they have ties to Lenawee County, that's important because for us, what it does is it tells us that person is more likely to stay and work here than leave. And Chief Emmerich hit it earlier that it's frustrating. I lost 2 people in the last 3 months, and it is no fault of anyone. And I wish them very good luck because they're going on to locations that they'd rather be at, and they're going on to departments that can offer things that I cannot offer. So I had them both for a few years, and I will hire a good qualified person who looks at it has the same values as the sheriff's office. And if I only get 2 or 3 years out of them, then so be it. I can guarantee they serve the citizens of Lenawee County better in that 2 to 3 years than not. So I'll take that any day. If I could keep them, that's even better.
I don't think you can require someone to live in the county.
I wasn't going to go there for the legal part of it, Burke. I defer to you on that one.
Okay.
Well, not only that, I think I've known of police unions in other counties who make that part of the contract, that you can't force us to live here. So that might go hand in hand with that. Okay, next question. Does your department have any practices in place to promote positive police and citizen interaction for interaction with our youth and in marginalized communities?
So I'll jump in real quick because as we're sitting here, you might have seen my phone buzz a second ago or heard it buzz. And that's because I have one of my deputies who wanted to send me a picture for Facebook. It's probably hard to see on here, but it's her doing a food drive and collecting food for the sheriff's office for turkey dinners. And so that we're able to give them to needy families. And she's my school resource officer. So those are the kind of things that we encourage. And most oftentimes the deputies come up with these ideas themselves. Hey, Sheriff, how about if we do this? Or how about if we do that? I absolutely love it. I had a deputy who wanted to attend Juneteenth with me. He saw my posting last year or the year before and said, hey, I want to do that with you, Sheriff. We encourage them to read in the schools. We encourage them to go to sporting events and stop in and have conversations. It's just part of that, being part of the community. And we're part of our strategic plan this year and last year, and part of our goals and objectives is to do that more often. Of course, I'm going to bring up the elephant in the room, which is COVID. We can't do anything right now with COVID. We can't go to any of these events. Shop with a cop. You can't talk about giving back to the community and being, and reaching out to the kids without talking about shop with a cop. And it's going to look a whole lot different this year. And it breaks our hearts that we can't do it, because I've been doing shop with a cop for, wow, probably 25 years. And it's an amazing thing. Unfortunately, we can't do it this year, but we're going to try to find other ways to give back. It's these things that I don't have to twist my deputies' arms to do this. It's things that my deputies come to me and say, hey, Sheriff, can we do this? Can we be part of March reading? In the past, and let's talk about how you would look at whether a deputy or an officer is really doing their job, quote unquote. And in the past, it's all about, how many tickets did you write? How many arrests did you make? It's less of that now. And that's a good thing. It's how many times were you able to get out in the community? It's all of these different things that make that so important. Now, don't get me wrong. The arrests and the tickets are part of keeping the community safe and won't stop, because that's what we do to keep the community safe. That's not what I'm finding is that's not what the deputies really want to do. They want to get out of the community. So we've had to try to figure out, how do we, part of our evaluations, how do we change our evaluations so no longer is it taboo for you to go in and talk to people at the schools? And again, it's changing a culture. It's difficult to change a culture, but it's so important to do that. And that's what you have to do.
Yeah, the sheriff's right on. We have a number of events that we go through throughout the year, and I have a lengthy list. I'll spare you all. It's just that, we try to make community involvement integral at every level of policing. So in addition to, the Lions basketball games, the Shop with the Hero, J-Term, all those things that we do, there's administrative changes. For example, a couple years back when staffing was low and calls were high, we were looking at where we could save officer hours on the street, and we tinkered with the idea of getting rid of responding to lockouts. So lockouts is not a crime. It's something we did as a community service. But the theme that came through was that interaction is always 100% positive. You're there. There's someone who's in trouble. You're going to save them some money if you can get into their car, get them keys, get them on their way. So, it's little things like that we try to incorporate at every level, in addition to, going out and working with Habitat and doing stuff like that. The CEPTED, the crime prevention through economic design, addressing blight with code enforcement wherever possible. it's hitting on those things and incorporating it in part of your daily plan.
The next question, does your department maintain statistics on homeless people in Adrian or Lenawee County? If so, is this information available to the public? If not, could your department collect this information?
I'll defer to Vince on this one. This is really, we do not collect statistics on homeless, and could we? Probably, and the best place to do that probably would be in the jail.
Yeah, I would not say we collect statistics per se. When we write reports and the person doesn't have an address, we would put homeless in the address line. If we know what encampment they're staying at, there might be a note made of that. But in terms of tracking the size of the population or where they're staying, the officer on the street has a general idea of how many people are in which encampment, or if they're looking for a specific person, where they could find them. But hard numbers, hard stats, we would not have that.
Okay, what information, if any, is collected on the ethnicity of people who are detained by the police for an investigation not resulting in an arrest? For those who are arrested, as well as, is this information public?
Vince is looking at me, and I'm looking at Vince on the screen here, and we're trying to see who can unmute either quickest or latest. We do not collect that data at the sheriff's office on anything that doesn't end up in an arrest.
Well, the non-arrest data. So if we have a crime report where no one's arrested and we populate the person's information, the ethnicity is part of that already. The arrest data, yeah, it's part of that too. It goes in under our reporting system.
If I'm not mistaken, I think traditionally the standard police forms are you can check white, black, or other. Is that correct?
That's correct. Over the summer, I was working with Miss Cavasso Frank and the Black Lives Matter of Lenawee. We ran some reports on traffic stops and arrests. And the options in our reporting system are black, white, American Indian, other. So that's what you had. So I think, and I don't want to get into another question here, but I think that most officers on the street, we don't ask that question because we don't want to make issue of it. And then many officers wind up checking other because they don't know, or unknown because they don't know, and no one wants to guess at that.
Okay, the next question is briefly describe the continuum of police use of force.
All right, well, I know Vince talked about it a little bit earlier. And so for the sheriff's office, the first thing is obviously when it's kind of second nature with deputies, with officers, to try to de-escalate when you can. I've seen many videos, many use of force, and de-escalation is usually the first thing they try to do. Now, is it normally called de-escalation? Not necessarily. It may just be trying to establish a rapport, trying to resolve something in a manner that that works out for everyone. But really, what it is de-escalation. And after that, there's really three factors that we look at. And I think, Judge, the way the question is worded, you're kind of looking at the force continuum, and we're less likely to use the force continuum now than we are to use the Graham versus Connor, which is objective reasonableness. So anytime there's a use of force, the thing that we look at is what is the seriousness of the offense at the time the force was used, the physical threat to the officer or others, and the chance that they will flee. And that's really when we do a use of force report, which is required in any use of force. Those are the things that we're looking at, and those are the things that are reported back and that we keep statistics on. I'm not sure if that helped and really answered your question, Joe, but
I think it did. And the reference you made to Graham, you're referring to the court case.
I am, yes.
Yep. I didn't know if the chief wanted to comment on this or not.
Yeah, I think you really hit it there, Sheriff. I did provide, I don't know, Michelle, if you want to get into the force continuum, it's a guide put out by M. Coles. They teach in the academy, not, as the sheriff said, not so much part of policy once you become an officer, but it's a guide used to help train to basically put on paper so the officer can process a situation. And you can see it right there at the top, a training guide for escalation and de-escalation. So you have the subject action at top, you have the officer response at the bottom. And the reason that you go by the court case rather than so much the continuum is that you can't expect an officer to hit every level of this. You know, if the person is in active resistance on one end, they pull a weapon and fire a shot at you, it goes all the way down. So the officer can't be expected to stop and, okay, did you try physical controls? Did you do this, do that? They have to meet that force. And then also the reverse of that is true. You know, if the person drops the gun, they put their hands up and surrender, then the officer then backs down. So the continuum itself is just basically putting a form out there for the officer to then see and understand and process that. And it's alluded to in our use of force policies, but the continuum itself is not the only thing that we look at. It's the reasonableness, like the sheriff said.
Okay. Describe the difference between an arrest and detention for an investigatory stop.
So when looking at the difference between the two, really what it boils down to is an arrest is based on probable cause. So you respond to a crime, you respond to an investigation, a domestic assault, shoplifting, any of those. And the arrest is made based on, do they meet the criteria of probable cause? As opposed to detention for an investigatory stop, really what that is looking at is reasonable suspicion. You have information that a subject meeting a description was involved in a crime, or you have a belief that a vehicle may have drugs in it, things of that nature. So, and really what it comes down to is reasonableness and how long is it reasonable to detain a person, and also and time can play into that. So that's really what it boils down to is if you're making an arrest, then you have probable cause to do that. Did I do okay, Burke, on that one?
Yes, you did. And the big key is that reasonable suspicion, and it has to be reasonable. And that is what a neutral magistrate decide a reasonable person would do. If a police officer has a, there is a such thing as a gut instinct, but there has to be some articulable facts to go with that, and they can detain someone to investigate. One of the questions come up, do I have to give my name? Police officer asks, and the answer is yes, if they have reasonable suspicion. Now, just because someone's a passenger in a car, they don't have to give their name necessarily, unless there are articulable facts that lead to reasonable suspicion. But where the detainment versus arrest really comes into play is as soon as that police officer has probable cause. And what is probable cause? That's more than reasonable suspicion, but it doesn't go as far as preponderance of the evidence. I know I'm using some bigger terms, but preponderance of the evidence, is it more than 51% likely that they did it? It's less than that, probable cause. So if a police officer sees someone commit a misdemeanor in their presence, they can arrest them. Or if they have probable cause that they committed a felony, they can arrest But there is a fine line, and it is not a bright line. There is no rule from when it goes from detainment to arrest. It's a gray area, and it's very fact specific as to what a reasonable person would do. Just because someone has handcuffs on doesn't necessarily mean they're arrested, but it is sure an indication that they are going to be arrested, and that's where those two distinctions come into play.
So kind of and they're not free to leave. That's the other part. If they're being detained or arrested, they're not free to leave.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the use of handcuffs, because I know police will sometimes tell people, for my own safety, I'm going to place you in some type of restraints. It doesn't mean you're under arrest. So I'm glad you pointed that out. Okay, this is always a good one that comes up. What is your best advice to a motorist who has been stopped by a member of your department?
Good, Vince.
I always say just be polite, and they should have a respectful person respond to them in the officer too. So, if both sides are respectful and decent, and tickets issued or a warning or whatever, then everyone's on their way. If they feel that something unjust happened, then they can report it after the fact and just deal with it that way, rather than try to deal with it on the side of the road.
And I agree, and I just add that have your information readily available with you. If you get pulled over, you're going to be asked for your information. It's not a surprise. Often I see videos and it's like, well, what do you need my driver's license for? Well, you were driving. It's kind of one of those things. And don't become argumentative. There's a time and place to become argumentative, and probably not there. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't explain yourself. I get that. People can explain themselves without getting argumentative. And if you believe that you're in the wrong, or excuse me, that you're not in the wrong, there is a place for that. That's why we have judges on here, right, Judge Anzalone? There's a place for you to take that. And the last thing is that if it comes down to the point where you have an issue with the person who's stopping you, then there is an avenue for that too, and that's the supervisor. And that's the best place to start, is with the person's supervisor. So that would be my recommendation.
We had Trooper Herman Brown on Siena Heights University campus a couple years ago, and Chief Emmerich, I can't remember if you were there. I think you probably were, because we've had the pleasure of having Chief Emmerich as an instructor there in the past. And one of the things he said too, that leave your hands on the steering wheel. Don't be diving for the glove box trying to retrieve paperwork that you're anticipating the officer is going to ask for, because you're making the officer nervous too. When you do that, the officer will tell you what to do, and you should follow those directions. I'm assuming you would agree with that.
Yeah, your memory is a lot better than mine, Judge. You're absolutely right. You got to remember that there's apprehension on both sides. The officer doesn't know what to expect. The person doesn't know what to expect. There's so much in the media and in the public right now, and everyone is just fearful of what might happen on both sides. So if you just put your hands on the wheel, the officer comes up, there's a polite exchange that deflates the entire situation. Takes all the stress out of it, and whatever happens from there, like the sheriff said, if you feel it was unjust, then there's a method to deal with that too.
My goal was always to have them thank me on a stop. And I know a lot of deputies have that same goal. Even if you write them a ticket, the goal is to have them thank you. And they may not, that may not be real genuine, but at times it is, because at times, you could have written them a whole lot more, or you could have done other things. But being polite and having an honest exchange is a good way of doing that.
The state police got me a couple of times in high school. I didn't thank them, Sheriff.
Okay, if a police officer or deputy is reprimanded for violation of a departmental policy or following a citizen's complaint, how long is it on his or her record? And what is the process for filing a complaint against a police officer or deputy within your department?
Judge, a lot of that deals with contracts, like you mentioned. Some of the minor offenses or unfounded will be gone within a year. So the lowest form of discipline for us is called a counseling memo, and it's contractual that that will be taken out of the employee file after 1 year. More serious offenses remain in the file, and they become part of what's called progressive discipline. So for us, our rules and regulations are very strict. They're very specific with what the punishment is. You'll have a series of offenses, and then you'll have if it's first, second, third, and then the punishment is more serious as that scale goes up. So it's really not, while I do have some discretion in it, it's really laid out for me what should happen for an event like that. The other part of that, the process for filing a complaint, that's something that we talked about. I'm trying to remember what meeting that was. Actually, you could help me out. Was that our Black Lives Matter meetings? Okay. Yeah, because some people don't feel comfortable. I mean, obviously they can call me anytime. Some people might not be comfortable doing that. So we've talked about changing our process a couple different ways, either having a online system or a third party report somehow, so that someone who might be reluctant to come in at least gets that information to me so that I can look at it in some form.
And our process is not much different than Chief Emmerich's. And when it comes to the lowest form is a counseling memo, and memos, written reprimands will come out of a person's file after 1 year. Anything that involves a suspension or termination will become part of their permanent record and will not come out. And as far as the other part, the contacting a supervisor I mentioned earlier, you don't have to write anything out at the sheriff's office. And that's always one of those things that people talk about. Well, they need to come in and write out a complaint. And that's not true. We changed that years ago, that if you want to make a complaint, we'll take a complaint over the phone. We'll take it on a napkin. You name it, and we'll take it, because ultimately the goal is to make sure that we find out the truth and make sure that we're holding people accountable.
We do sometimes receive complaints at the prosecutor's office about police officers, and typically it depends on not typically, it depends on the nature of the crime, the allegation. If it's something that's a policy issue, I usually contact the head of the department for an internal investigation. But if it's an allegation of a crime, then I would send that out typically to the Michigan State Police, unless it is the Michigan State Police that is being complained against, at which I then go to the head of the district. But one thing to keep in mind is that anytime a police officer commits either a crime or an action that would bring their credibility into question, that is something that the prosecutor's office keeps track of. And that is something that we turn over to defense if that officer is going to have to testify. It's called a Brady Giglio list. And that list never expires. When someone's credibility comes into question, that's something that lasts forever.
The other thing I'd like to add too is that if there's an allegation and we believe it's a very serious allegation, we will bring in a third-party investigator. The Michigan Sheriff's Association has what's called a mission team, and we are part of that mission team. We have an investigator that we loan out to other sheriff's offices throughout Michigan. And I've drawn upon that mission team on a number of occasions. All I have to do is send an email or make a phone call, and I'll have two investigators from different sheriff's offices that will come and investigate this and put a totally separate set of eyes on this. So it's not us investigating, it's a separate entity investigating. We've also used Michigan State Police from time to time. So we do believe that it's important and to keep the integrity of those investigations.
This is our next and last question. Would the city and or county be willing?
You cut out, Joe. I couldn't hear you.
Okay, I'll try again. Can you hear me now? As they
Yes.
say on the commercial? Okay. So would the city or county be willing to have an oversight board such as a citizens advisory board? And if so, what is the first step?
Well, if I can take that, Joe, actually, I believe we've already taken the first step, all of us in law enforcement agencies in Lenawee County. After our summer NAACP meeting, we put together a subcommittee of the Michigan Chiefs Association, and Chief Cuevas has been leading that. And that's one of the things that he's been working on and looking at. So we've kind of already taken the first steps on that, and we talked about if it would be a county, a law enforcement thing for the entire county. So Vince, did you want to add on that?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the dynamic would be for the county. I mean, here in the city, we have the HRC, and there's been some conversation about using that entity as a civilian review. So we're in the very early stages of those conversations, but I don't know how it would work having one board for all 14 agencies in the county, how that would be possible.
Yeah, let me just add something too. So we have the president of the Lenawee County branch of the NAACP, Jeanette Hennekins, online. We have Pamela Hall, who is our treasurer. And the three of us are on a committee of 5 members from the NAACP. And we will be meeting, I believe, Jeanette, sometime in December at our usual meeting. And we've been putting some paperwork together from citizens advisory boards as compared to citizen review committees, which is a little bit more formal. And we'll be eventually presenting some suggestions to Chief Cuevas about that. So I didn't want to bring that up first because I know that this commission was interested in this as well. So although I didn't think we would get through these questions as quickly as we did, we were going to save some time for public comments. And so I'm going to turn it back over to the mayor.
Thank you so much, Judge Costello. We appreciate it very much. At this time, we are going to allow for public comment. Just as a reminder, as in all of our city meetings, that there will be a 3-minute time limit. I will be displaying that for you to see, and we would like you to please state your name before you give your comment. But we also just want to remind you that we will not accept personal attacks on anyone here, and just so please keep your comments from being personal attacks, or you will be asked to stop, and please stay on the topic. Thank you.
Well, this isn't a question. It's just, no, this isn't a comment. This is just a question. If you find yourself, being stopped by the police or sheriff, and you ask for their name and badge number, are they required to give that to you?
Absolutely. We've had that come up on a number of occasions, and if somebody asks my deputies or myself for your name and badge number, you need to give them your name and badge number. This is no secret. You are a public servant, and you work for the community. So it always surprises me when that allegation comes up that the person that the officer or deputy refused to give their name and badge number, and I always it just kind of I don't understand. I shake my head in disbelief and say, why would you not? So yeah, I can speak for the sheriff's office on that.
The same is true for the city. It's in our policy. It's a major infraction if you do not. We also switched from the traditional metal name pins that were much smaller to a sewn-on name tape, so it is a much larger, much easier to read print. A couple of reasons for that, but mainly so that it's more noticeable.
Thank you.
Chief Emmerich, Sheriff, could you talk a little bit about their department's use of body cameras and who is allowed to review those cameras?
Sure. We've been using body cameras now for probably 3.5, maybe 4 years. And oftentimes we talked about the complaint process a little bit. And one of the first things that we'll do is we'll review a body camera. And it's usually us that'll call somebody up and say, please come on in and we'll review the body camera together. I can think of some, I'm not going to get into specifics, but I can think of some cases in the past where body cameras have been invaluable, not just for physical evidence, but also for other evidence. So I have no problem calling somebody up and saying, come on, let's watch this video together.
The only thing I would add to that is that body cameras are not available to the public while the case is under investigation, unless the department wishes to review one specifically with a person. That would be a different story. But such as FOIA, we cannot give out that information that is evidence of a crime, and we also cannot taint a jury by putting those body cameras out to the public when we know they are going to be used as evidence in a case. So they are all eventually available to the public, but we cannot give them out while the case is under investigation.
The city's used body cameras since 2015. We've had a couple different generations. What I would tie into that conversation, also the complaint process, the reason being that, retention periods are set when a video gets put onto our server. And the sooner that we know about a complaint, the sooner that we can mark it as an internal and save that. We've had cases that go beyond 3 months. The video gets purged because it's a traffic stop or it's not another offense. And a person will come in, 6 months after that and want to make a complaint, and that video has already been purged. So that's it's very important for us to get those complaints as soon as possible so that we can preserve that evidence. The ultimate solution for that is going to a cloud-based system, which the sheriff is on already, and we're hoping to obtain in the next year or two. It's a very expensive proposition, but one that would secure our video for a much longer span.
And even that being said, you bring up a good point, Chief. We run out of space also because we have to pay for that space, and so it's the same thing. We have some things that after 90 days are purged out of the system, because if not, then it would cost a lot more money, and we try to be kind of judicious with the taxpayers' money, and so they get purged. So I echo the same thing. If it's going to be a complaint, then the sooner we know about it, the better.
Before we move to commissioner comments, I just wanted to ask you, we had talked this summer about the policies, chief, being publicly available. Is that a thing yet?
Right, we're working with the software's Power DMS, and there's supposed to be a public site on our website. So that's obviously taking longer than we expected, but it is still in the process. We have, we're going through accreditation. There's 104 standards that will be measured against, and all of those policies will be public. They'll be on a website that someone can comb through. So when we were meeting in the summer, I had to print them out and bring them with me so that the group could read them. But looking forward to the future where everybody can just log in and check them out if they want to.
Yes, and I did want to say, Human Relation Commissioners, you can ask questions right now during the public comment as well. So feel free. You're part of the public right now for this.
Hello? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I wanted to know on the side of the public, what is the rules and regulations that we have as far as being able to videotape an interaction with the police? Can we tape that ourselves or video someone else?
If you're in a public space, you can video pretty much whatever you want.
And I think implied in that is that you're not interfering with the police officer's actions.
Correct.
Great, thank you.
Along with that question, Judge Anna Maria, can you explain how you would use something like that in your courtroom?
Are you referring to videos that people
The
take?
videos that people take and also the cameras from the officers.
So we have many times had the cameras from the police officers looked at for cases. They're admissible. I believe that Mr. Castleberry has had those available at times as well. And I've not yet had any videos of just people from the public. So that's never come up yet, but I have viewed police cams and it's effective one way or the other. So Mr. Castleberry, you use them often in trial?
Well, obviously, the body cam from the police we use quite often, but a video that a citizen or possibly even a defendant has used, as long as someone can testify that it's a fair and accurate representation of what happened, we would be able to admit that into evidence. When I say we, it could be the prosecution or the defense. So those can be used, but someone's going to have to be able to testify to say this is a fair and accurate representation of what happened at that location. It's no different than a police body cam. The police officer has to testify and say this is fair and accurate representation of what went on, and then you can watch it. The jury can watch it.
Body cam video, the only time it's ever come up in circuit court would be a police officer resisting or obstructing. Usually, that's the only context I've ever had them in my courtroom for.
Okay, good, thank you.
We have used them quite a bit in larger cases, like in capital cases. If a defendant, for example, if you're in a homicide case and a defendant gets interviewed, those cameras will typically be played if as the police officer is trying to describe what the defendant is saying. So they are used. I can tell you that in the warrant review process, they are invaluable because just reading a report versus actually seeing what went on, it helps me in making determinations on warrants. It's a great tool. It shows what really happened, and it kind of settles the he said, she said, because it's actually being documented.
Another question I would have to each of our speakers is, what do you see as a positive or a negative for your looking to bridge the divide in Lenawee County? Adrian and Lenawee County. Give me a review of what your thoughts are.
I can tell you, anytime we have open communication, I think good things come from it. I thought this summer when we had our meeting out at Island Park, I thought it went great. And I can tell you, everything that's said isn't going to please everybody. But when we have that open line of communication, we can take steps forward. We can build a resilient community if we keep this communication line open.
One of the, and I'm asked this quite often, especially as things throughout the country get heated and the divide seems to be getting larger. I make sure and talk to my people and let them know you're in Lenawee County. You have a lot of support from the community, and I believe that. I believe that Lenawee County is a fantastic place, and it's a great place to be a police officer, because as things are happening throughout the country, I think that for the most part we're looked at, and there is some trust that we have developed and that we can expand on. So do we have a lot more work ahead of us? Absolutely. It's kind of like a marriage relationship. You can never take it for granted, and you always have to be working on it. And I think that's true of this as well. So as the prosecutor said, the meeting we had this summer was fantastic. The fact that that the leaders of the law enforcement agencies want to sit down in a forum like this and want to keep these lines of communication open, and the fact that the leaders of the community want the same thing. Wow, that's fantastic. We're halfway home to making sure that that we keep this going.
The benefit of the city of Adrian is that it's a small and close community, and if an officer has an encounter with a citizen, both parties, the possibility that they'll see each other again is very real, and they tend to be respectful of each other. The officer needs that trust in the community to be effective at his job, his or her job, so he knows that how he treats that person, or how he or she treats that person, is going to be reflected in their work. They're reflecting the department, and the next time they see the person, they may come up, and if they know something, they may share it, because they know they've dealt with that person before, they had a positive interaction, and they know it's someone that can be trusted. So one of the things that we have on our side is that small community, because we have the opportunity to know a greater percentage of the population than, say, a larger jurisdiction.
Of course, the negative to that is the fact that we do have people coming from outside our small community and outside of Lenawee County, and that makes it challenging. But I think that Vince is absolutely right.
I would also add that I came from Metro Detroit area to this community. I worked for Neighborhood Legal Services in Wayne County, worked in Detroit for many years as a teacher, and also as a law student working for Neighborhood Legal Services. What I see here is more positive interaction between the legal community, law enforcement, and the populace compared to what I've seen in other jurisdictions. And I've had 3 bailiffs now, not because they didn't like me, but they all retired. And it was always interesting. They worked locally in law enforcement, and the interactions between some of the defendants and them in my courtroom, you know, they were friendly, they had a good relationship, they communicated, you know, there wasn't any hatred or distrust to a great extent. So, you know, I think we're fortunate, as Chief Emmerich said, we're in a smaller community and we're able, I think, to try to foster better relationships. And I see our community doing that. We've also tried to add sobriety court, drug court, different resources to try to get help to the families and the defendants that need it. So I think we're on a good path. We're not there yet, but we're on a good path.
Prosecutor.
I went first.
Oh, that's right. You did. You did. We appreciate. Judge Joe, do you have any other comments that you would like to make before we?
No, I want to thank you for involving me. I did not want to slight the NAACP by not listing that in the program, but this is not we're not to go out and say we represent the NAACP. We're at events like this, but I'm a very proud member of that. We're real lucky to have Jeanette Hennigan. Haven't lived very long in this community, but people such as yourself, Chairperson Bernard and Jeanette, I'm really happy of our decision to move over here full time.
Thank you.
Is there any other public comment? Sometimes it takes a while for people to unmute, I know, so I just want to make sure. I'm going to give it here like another minute.
I did have another question, and it's kind of like a feeling question. So I think I've heard when I talked with the community and like the marginalized groups this summer, I always kind of wondered, like, what does it feel like for you guys as law enforcement? So this is specifically for a sheriff and chief, to be represented by, and I guess the worst of you, like the Derek Chauvins and the Brent Haskins. Like, what does it feel like to be represented by the worst, the people that shouldn't be doing what you guys do?
Well, it feels awful to see that. And those people are as criminal as anyone else that we've arrested. And it's sad and it's terrible that the profession we've joined to help people is vilified because of the actions of a few. It makes it difficult sometimes. I don't know what else to say about that. When I saw the video from Chauvin, I have only watched it once. I could only watch it once. It invokes some pretty hard feelings, and I'm sure it did for everyone here. And you know, we're human beings. We have the same feelings. We know injustice when we see it, and we want to act on it as much as anyone.
Sheriff, what about you?
So I have some great people that work for the sheriff's office, and I've had the opportunity of working with some really good deputies, and I think I've heard it in the media, and I try not to attach feelings to it, but what I do say is that there are bad in every profession, and our job is to make sure that those who do that do not stay in that profession. And over my career as law enforcement for 30 years, I've seen a lot of both, and I'm happy to say that normally the ones who shouldn't be in it don't stay in it very long because because they do things that bring that to light, and justice does occur. So, like I said, I think that it makes it tough on the profession, but those who are in it understand that that they're held to a higher standard.
Mhm. Mayor Heath?
Yep, I'm gonna give it here one little bit and see if there's any more. Hearing no more, before we head into commissioner comments, we are going to open it for the Human Relations Commission to just give some thoughts if they have them, or closing some comments if they have any comments. But I just cannot thank our community enough for coming together like this, to see our county prosecutor and Judge Anzalone and our chief of police and our sheriff all being willing to come in a format like this and have this open dialogue and have these discussions, and everybody just wanting to work together and be more transparent and just communicating. And I know that Bert Castleberry said it, and he's so right on the money when it comes to communication. That is key. And I know that that is one really big thing that the Human Relations Commission has seen. And that's one reason why they wanted to do this. And they want to do some town halls for different events in the future. And just really having that communication open. But I just cannot thank you enough for being willing to come on here tonight and have this open communication. And I cannot thank you, Judge Costello, for enough for all your moderating, and what a great job you did, and just how well it was run. And I just really think that a lot of times if we're not communicating, then we don't really know. And I mean, obviously, but we think we know what somebody else is doing or thinking, or actions that are being done. But without that open communication and that dialogue going on, we really don't know. And it can be a very eye-opening experience, as some may have realized from tonight. But I've also learned from conversations that we have already had taking place over the course of the summer and into the fall. So thank you very much. Now we will open it up for our Human Relations Commission, if any of you have any comments.
Hello, this is D'Angelo Boone, HRC, and just wanted to say that I really appreciate all of our panelists coming on and being a part of this forum. The information that was provided was extremely educational, and I'm sure that it would create more dialogue within community coalitions and organizations as well. And if we can continue to have forums like this as we move forward, I think that it would foster a better relationship between our local police department, judicial system, and the community at large.
I just wanted to take a second to thank everyone that sent in questions and that met with us and spoke with us about their concerns over the summer and in safe ways after COVID and all of those things. Like, it's a really tough time to try to communicate with people and get their opinions and make it personal, because it's really hard to seem genuine when you're talking like through an email or a Facebook comment. So I was a little concerned about how formal it was, because it was a lot different than we had discussed over the summer. We wanted it to be more of a candid discussion and a back and forth, but I really appreciate the way everyone was open, and you can tell that they want to start some healing. And I think this was a really good first step for that. And yeah, like D'Angelo said, I think we should continue to do stuff like this and and keep bringing these things up so we can keep building a relationship between our community and law enforcement and the judicial system. It's important. And I'm really excited that this happened.
Well, if no one else is speaking, I would like to thank our moderator for a fantastic job. And we appreciate so much all of our speakers for the time that you have given to us, the respect that you've shown for even the plan of trying to bridge the divide. The committee is not trying to force anything, but we're trying to build. And in order to build, we need all of you, and you need us. But we need to hear, as we hear from the community, we would like to be able to bring these ideas and concerns to you. And I was so happy for how the sheriff expressed, you don't have to have a formal paper, you can come and talk to me. This kind of trust building is going to help us be a better community. If I can say, just call him, send him a message. You can email, you can text, you can pick up the phone. Because in this community, we have all of those things that people do. And when people can call you and you listen to them, you're going to build that trust that we need, which is part of the bridge. I really appreciate all of you for taking that time out. Judge, both judges, I really appreciate your experience and the opportunity to talk to you. And I know there's a lot of questions that are going to be coming all of your way because of this, but it is helping us to know what kind of people you are as well. And it's helping us to be able to work together, even with the NAACP as they're working to do some of the same things that the HRC is trying to accomplish. And thank you so much. We need people to continue to step up forward. We need the young people. We need to understand what Black Lives is all about. When we say those words and not be offended by someone asking a question and say, I'm part of Black Lives Matter, or I'm part of this community, I'm part of the NAACP, I'm part of the city. It's so important that we continue to fight this fight together, because we hear a lot of rhetoric coming from the country, from the state, from other states. We have people that are coming here that come to stir trouble up. And sometimes we have to have our officers be defensive. And I get nervous every time I get stopped or a police car passes me sometimes in a speed. I don't know if they're coming after me or what, but I do know when I'm in my community, I know when they see my face, they know who I am and they know my cars, and they will treat me with respect, and I will do the same. I really appreciate all of you, and I would just like to say thank you for being a part of this great entire Bridging the Divide meeting forum. And we look forward to doing some town halls as soon as the pandemic gets a little bit better. Let's remember to stay safe and remember that we're in it together. Mayor Heath.
Well, I just wanted to ask if, do any of the panelists have any final thoughts, anything that came out of anything that you would like to share? It's not, you don't have to. And I would also ask you, Judge Costello, to also, I know you were the moderator, but I know that, you have been on that judicial side. You do teach criminal justice, all of, just any closing thoughts, anything you would like to leave us with. Thank you.
We're going to flip a coin.
Well, the only thing I'd like to say is, well, the first thing is thank you for inviting me and letting me be part of this. As I look at my tiles on the screen here, they're all familiar faces. So we're not, we are familiar to each other, and we do work together and we work together well, and we'll continue to do that. So thank you, and I look forward to the future.
I just want to make a comment. I wanted to commend Prosecutor Castleberry. Some of you might be aware of an assault that took place against a man and woman. They were both white, by a white perpetrator. And at first it appeared that, and the city of Adrian police too, at first it appeared that nothing was going to happen to this gentleman. And even during the pandemic, when it's that much tougher to process things, they were able, they being the prosecutor and the city of Adrian Police Department, got warrants out overnight. I mean, that's just remarkable. That just doesn't even happen during regular times. So the attention that they paid to that event just showed me everything I needed to know, is that they're responsive. And we're all going to have our critics. And sometimes it's based upon misinformation or just outright wrong information or not understanding procedures. So I can see a real benefit. I think this is going to be a two-way street. There's a lot we can learn from the police, and there's a lot they can learn from us regarding our perceptions. I look forward to that.
I would just, thanks, Joe, but I would like to thank you guys for inviting me to this. Ms. Bernard, I think, spoke a little earlier about the sheriff being available. We're all public servants here. We are available. Now, you can't walk in the courthouse right now because the courthouse is shut down to the public.
Yes.
But the phone works and
Yes.
the email works. And
Yeah.
if there is a question that you have, we don't have to wait for a forum. If you have a question,
Okay.
call. And I can't promise you that I'll have every answer, but I can promise you that I'll research and I'll give you the best answer I can. But I do appreciate you putting this together. I think it's an important step, and I hope that we continue this.
Oh, we will. Thank you.
And I just wanted to thank you for inviting me, Judge Costello and Mrs. Bernard. You know, I like that in our community, we have a lot of dialogue between the different groups with the NAACP. Santa Heights, I've attended some diversity events there. And, you know, the police departments, I have great hopes for our future in this community, especially pulling together like this, even in the midst of a pandemic. And Judge Costello, we're very lucky to have you here. So thank
Yes.
you.
Just want to say thank you for allowing me to be part of this meeting. It seems that every conversation I have, I learn as much as I share. So I hope to continue that and continue our relationships. Thank you.
Before Chair Bernard closes us out, I would just I would just like to once again thank everyone, but also let you know that if you want to share this, maybe somebody could not attend tonight that you wanted to share it with. This was recorded. It will be, correct me if I'm wrong, Michelle, will it be under the Human Relations Commission section for agendas? And is that where the video will be located?
Yes, I'll post it there. I'll post it probably on the homepage of our website as well for a while, but it will also be on the Human Relations page.
Okay, so you will be able to share that once she gets that up there. You know, so if some could not make it and you want to share this with more in the public, that opportunity exists. And thank you again. And with that, I will hand it over to you to close this out. Chair Bernard, thank you.
All right. Thank you again, everyone. I really appreciate all of you, and especially the mayor for allowing us to do this forum, and for Commissioner Frank, who actually worked with the police during the summertime, during the marches and the different things. A lot of us were a part of things, and some of us were not a part of all of the ins and outs of it. But when it came together, we just really appreciate how it has branched off into the areas that it has. And I've learned a lot, and most of my business has been in law enforcement. In fact, I retired from corrections. So I think it's been a wonderful experience, and we look forward to having the future be even greater than this, and more people to learn more about what they can do to help this community be a better community. because we all live here. Even if we don't physically live here, we come here to work, and we want this to be a safe place for our children and for our adults, and even for the people that are homeless, people that have mental illness. I was so happy to hear you talk about the mental illness, Mr. Casper. You really seem to be concerned about what's happening to the people in this community. So we definitely will be getting in touch with you all. If you have questions for us, you can go through the mayor or you can give me a call. I always put my phone number on any emails that I send out, so you can pick up the phone and call me as well. So thank you at this time. I'm going to, if there's no other comments or questions, we will close out the meeting. And I need the HRC commissioners, if they would say they all agree, and we would be able to close it out. HRC?
I agree.
Yes, aye.
I'm not hearing all of you, but thank you. It sounds like it was a good group. So
right.
all
Thank you.
not in favor, it's okay, because we're going anyway. All right, you all, thank you again.
Yep.
And
Thank
it
you.
was so nice to have all of you be a part of it. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank
Goodbye.
you.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Yes.